We're thrilled to be able to say that the first game outside of North America will be played in the City of London at the new Wembley Stadium.
We've got the New York Giants versus the Miami Dolphins. It's chucking it down, it's wet, it's muddy, and then that's when you realise this is actually happening.
Whenever you're doing something that you haven't done before, you start off with a dream and you start off with a vision. I mean, I would argue that in 2007, we winged it in ways that we had no idea at the time that we were winging it. But on the other side, if you don't actually dream big, then you'll never become big.
The genesis of the idea really was in 2005 when the Arizona Cardinals were going to move stadium and said that they would like to play a game outside the US.
We got a chance to bid for it, and ultimately the game went to Mexico, which made sense. So I'd say that 2002, 2003 was the start of it, 2005 was key, and then we moved to 2006, which was owner's vote. My sense was going into the vote the week before that there were more reasons to say no to it. But ultimately, when it came to the vote itself, from memory, I think it was 31 teams voting and 1 abstaining. I might be wrong in that, but it was an overwhelming endorsement. And then once we'd actually got an agreement that we would play a game outside of North America, then it was competition time to see whether we would be first in the queue or not.
We will do everything we can to make sure the league never forgets. It was a memorable and brave step to come to London, but one will be the start of American League football really becoming a part of the British sporting scene.
And then when it was announced that we were going to get an actual regular season game at Wembley, all my NFL dreams came true. So we'd had the American Bowls, we'd had the London Monarchs, and we had the World Bowl at Wembley. And you kind of think that, okay, that was the rehearsal. This is the real thing now. And you realise looking back that the NFL, it took them a long time, but they were very big stepping stones into having an actual international series game, the Giants versus the Dolphins at Wembley, which actually mattered when we saw the stars on every down of the game.
We wanted, again, to almost kind of bounce off our heritage here in the UK and come up with teams that had high levels of recognition as well as an inherent fan base as well. And the New York Giants were our first choice.
We had no idea at that stage how much interest there might be.
How do you know at that point in time whether you're going to actually sell out the stadium when it's not a game that you've ever done before? There were a lot of people within the New York office that were concerned that this was going to be a half-full stadium.
So we launched the registry of interest that weekend, and within 72 hours we'd had applications for 500,000 tickets.
My actual memory of the press conference, most vivid memory, is actually screaming down the phone and getting all vexed and frustrated that the server had crashed, and not knowing that it was because of the substantial level of interest. I actually thought technically we'd just not done our job.
So at that point we kind of breathed a sigh of relief and knew, okay, the game's going to sell out. Now we can actually work on getting the game staged properly and how we now maximise the impact of the game beyond just those who are going to attend at Wembley.
Listen now, it's going to cost y'all 30 pounds, right? 30 pounds. 30 pounds.
Yeah, I went to go meet the New York Giants, and we talked about everything. So what the league would provide, what they were responsible for, where they would stay, what are the options, how they would train. So you need about 10 to 12 meeting rooms, 160 bedrooms. You need a meal room that can sit 100 guys, and not just sit normal guys, but sit big guys. You need a place to have a chapel, so they'll do a Sunday service. You need to have a locker room. So the facilities we were using at the time, we had a locker room at the hotel. So you need to recreate all these things within one space. You need to make sure that all the preparation is right in the bedrooms, that you're cleaning out mini fridges and you're putting in Gatorade, and you're setting up beds that can fit the size of the guys that are sleeping in them. You had to step in the shower to make sure that the shower is big enough. So all these things you had to do, the level had to be there. So we had to, right from the start, gain the trust, gain the respect, and make the teams feel comfortable when they would come here, because we knew that they'd go over and they'd be advocates for us, and they'd be our ambassadors now to say, come play in London, it's a great setup, you'll have great facilities, and don't be nervous, don't be scared.
There were loads of things that could go wrong, and so weight on everyone's shoulders to make sure that it went as well as possible. So don't be one and done.
The challenge was knowing that we were going to have a full stadium, how we maximised the impact of the game and the NFL being in town.
We've finally been given what we've been dreaming of, which is a regular season game that mattered. So how can you make sure that it wasn't just the circus coming into town and that you got full benefit from it?
It seems amazing to think about it now looking back, but the big initiative around that first game was a fully working 30-foot animatronic robot of Jason Taylor, who at the time was the Miami Dolphins' biggest star.
Now, we didn't ask Jason Taylor for his permission, in hindsight, because we just got carried away with the idea. We didn't know what we were going to do with the animatronic, but we just thought the NFL is about being big, bold, larger than life. Could we do things that would just capture people's imagination?
It was a statement. We were very keen to make some kind of statement that said, A, that the NFL is big, and B, only the NFL would do this. Big JT was sort of our friend for a few months.
I remember being extremely excited. Just the prospect of coming back to play, I think, was crazy. I wasn't even aware that the game had grown in popularity to the point where you could have 80,000 people in a game. There were some people who were kind of like, I don't want to go to London to go play a game. I just want to play football. And then there were a lot of other people who had never left the country. And so this was an event or an experience for them. They were going overseas to go play football, to go play the game that they love and they're getting paid to do. So for them, that was just like the top of the world. And so, bringing both of them together, the guys who really didn't want to, leave and, come play, as soon as they came out here, they started to experience the culture, started to experience the environment, they were like, oh, this is incredible. And we really bonded as a team. And some of the things that we got to do the whole week was just outstanding.
It's great, man. I love London, man. I love it already. I can't wait to, go out and see a couple of things.
I don't know whether I'm being facetious, but I say that it's because we came to London that we were able to go on that magnificent run and ended up winning the Super Bowl. There were certain things that happened during that week. The way we came together as a team, some of the things that we talked about, the discussions that we had, because you're in an environment that you're not in outside of training camp. Because training camp, you're together like that all the time. And then once the season starts, everybody kind of like breaks apart. But here we're in the same hotel, we're on the same schedule, everybody was around each other all the time, and it kind of reinvigorated us, so to speak.
But of course, today is an historic day in the National Football League. For the first time, a regular season game will be played in Europe. It's the New York Giants against the Miami Dolphins, live from London.
Quite an atmosphere indeed here in London, England, and historic Wembley Stadium. It very much feels like a playoff game, a Super Bowl atmosphere, rather than just what it is, an NFL regular season game.
So obviously, after years of spending my father's and mother's hard-earned cash at Wembley in the late 80s, I had to go and spend some of my own and go and witness a historical moment, really, in the NFL's international history. And I think it's not just the NFL's international history, I think it's a pivotal moment in the 100 years of the National Football League.
I recall being on tenterhooks throughout because of that feeling of, let's not mess this up. It was the second wettest day of the year in the UK.
The game we're playing against the Miami Dolphins, who were a terrible team at the time, and we brought ourselves down to their level, so we didn't play that well either.
Yeah, it wasn't a classic game. It wasn't one of the best we've had. It was wet, it was soggy, it was damp, the field was horrific, but we got to see the stars of the NFL. The Dolphins weren't very good, but Eli Manning played.
He fondly remembers the touchdown run because I think he maybe had 3 or 4 in his entire career, and so for him that was a special night. A career where he won 2 Super Bowls and was a star in New York for 15 or 16 years. One of his career highlights is a rainy night in London, and pouring with rain, but I don't know, that kind of added to it in a way. It was uniquely British.
You know, the thing that really surprised everybody was seeing the amount of people that were in the stands at the time. Like, wow, this is incredible. These people actually know what's going on. Overall, the experience was magnificent, man. It's something that I don't think I'll ever forget.
It wasn't going to go forward if it didn't work. So if we didn't really deliver that experience to the Dolphins and to the Giants, we wouldn't have been playing more games.
Well, that's going to tie a ribbon around this first ever jaunt for the National Football League in a regular season game off the North American continent. And the New York Giants will come away with a 13-10 win.
Within a week of the first game being done, we moved from you might get a game in 4 years' time to let's play a game next year. And so we went from 1 game a year to 2 games a year to 3 games a year in consecutive years.